Hi, this is Gwen from Hub.Careers, and today I want to talk a little bit about working in a team and the challenges and benefits of that. So, every employer wants to hire someone that works well with others, and I find it quite easy to give examples and interviews of teamwork or emphasize this on my resume. However, I think many people actually have a pretty difficult time working in a team, and I don't think it's talked about enough. During my last position, I entered very positively. I'd always felt like an asset and a team player during projects, and in my previous jobs, I'd always gone along with everybody. But this was a very different type of position. My school projects and my other jobs didn't involve working closely with one team over a long period of time. And I think the reality of working in a team was much more difficult than I imagined it would be. Before we started working, our organization hired a professional team building coach who ran different workshops with corporate employees and schools and even some of the embassies around the world. And you've probably participated in a session like this at some point in your life. We just did different activities like having to solve a problem unanimously, or building a balloon tower, or giving directions to our blindfolded teammates, and we were competing with other teams, and everything was timed. I think exercises like this can be really good, and I thought they were really fun, but I don't necessarily think they always prepare people for the challenges of working in a team for the first time. In a professional setting, when the stakes are much higher and the projects are a lot more rigorous, tensions are much more strenuous than on one of these simulations. My team did a great job in these simulations, but when it came to real work, our communication routinely broke down. So I thought it might be helpful to outline some of the problems that we had and what could have been done better, as well as some things that went right. So the first thing I want to talk about is hierarchy. We were a team of 5 with a flat hierarchy, and in theory this sounded great. Essentially, we operated like a startup with no real boss. We had multiple stakeholders, but nobody was solely in charge. In practice, it didn't work. We spent a lot of time early on setting up procedures, and this is great. I think every team should spend a lot of time early on setting up procedures. But in my opinion, we set very unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and we had so many procedures that it was honestly difficult to keep track of all of them. We also had very different working styles and very different understandings of our own rules. This meant that we spent an inordinate amount of time early on just talking about procedures rather than doing our work or helping one another. So my advice, if you're working in a flat hierarchy, is to set one person in charge of procedures. If the majority of the team decides that, something isn't working, they can go to that one person and tell them that. That's fine. But I think setting one person in charge of procedures at the very beginning will limit wasted time discussing different issues. The second thing I want to talk about is the blame game. So one policy we had, which I really supported at the time, and I still support, is that we decided that we would discuss issues that we had with one another before any of our evaluation sessions. The idea was that this would minimize surprises and encourage teammates to talk out issues in a civilized manner instead of leaving teammates feeling alienated when they get a bad review and they had no idea they were doing something wrong. Again, this worked a lot better in theory than in practice. And like I said, I still think that any team should have a policy like this. Any team I work in the future, I'd want to have a policy like this. But it takes a bit of a balancing act. So we were all guilty of too frequently criticizing team behavior. Almost every week someone was getting an hour's worth of criticism, and again, we were wasting time, and it's also a tricky situation because we didn't find that specific balance. People respond to criticism differently. Some find it constructive and some fall apart. And the best piece of advice I can give is to figure out how everyone in your team takes this criticism. Not just what they say they're going to do when they get criticism, but actually how you see them respond to it. If you see that you have one teammate who's just completely falling apart over the criticism that they're getting, don't necessarily tell them, okay, you need to work on taking criticism better, which might be true, but find a different way to talk about your concerns with them. And lastly, I think it's really important to weigh whether your criticism is something that's actually going to help your team. Uh, Perhaps a teammate's changed behavior might be more convenient to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're performing more efficiently or by taking your advice, or the team is performing more efficiently. Sometimes it's really just better to let the little things slide. Third, I want to talk about competition. So one aspect that I really did like about my team is that I never saw any unhealthy competition. Once we all developed our own roles, we did our best to contribute to the overall project goal. And we didn't make the work a competition between each other. So while our team definitely had its problems, we always had that final goal in mind. Unfortunately, this does not always happen. I knew a startup. There was a team that I knew that they were creating their own business. And their business failed in the first year because of two main reasons. One was money, which is less relevant here, but the other was inter-team competition. And I think money is a little bit more difficult to fix those problems, but inter-team competition, that shouldn't have been a reason that your business failed. And instead of recognizing the final goal, the team members were just competing with each other. And so in one example, there was a team member who he failed to convince a prospective client to work with their business. And then another team member decided that he wanted to try a different technique with this client. But the members started fighting. The first team member didn't want to look weak. They preferred sacrificing that client entirely rather than admit that their negotiation skills might not be quite as strong as their team members. And I know that sounds silly, but it actually happens quite often. And I think one of the roots of this is when one doesn't feel confident in his or her skills, they sometimes overcompensate and become defensive. And this can be really difficult to deal with in a team. There were so many aspects in my job where I felt sometimes like I was the weak link, so to speak. And personally, what helped me was finding at least one thing which I really did excel at and taking on that role within my team. And once you have that confidence of having that role be the role that you always know people will trust you on and that you're the best at, it made me feel a lot more comfortable admitting when I didn't understand something else, or letting another team member take over a certain role, even if I could do it, but they felt they could do it better. And so when someone finds that aspect in the work, which they are confident, that I think just let them be the expert at that. I don't always fight to be the expert at everything if someone is fulfilling their role well. Make sure everybody has a role that they feel they're good at and they enjoy. The last thing I'll say is just that it's a learning experience. So keep in mind, even when tensions are high and mistakes are made, it's just part of the experience. I made lots of mistakes in my team, and there are so many things I could have done better. But now I know, and I think it's just important after you're finished with your project or while you're still in your project to just let things go and move forward. Let go of your own mistakes and also the mistakes of other people. And I feel significantly more prepared for my next team project now. I know what to expect, and I know what didn't work in the past. So thanks for watching this video with me, and to see more of my videos or videos like this, check out the Hub.Careers page. Thanks, bye.